Welcome back to our English Learning Podcast, the place where we help you improve your speaking skills and build your confidence every single week. Today's episode is designed for CEFR level, B1 learners. We have a fantastic topic prepared for you today. It is something that affects almost every single person who is learning a second language. We are going to talk about how to stop translating in your head and how to start thinking directly in English.
That is such an important topic. I think it is the biggest problem our listeners face. When you translate in your head, speaking feels very slow and very difficult. But before we dive deep into this topic, I think we should quickly introduce ourselves to anyone who is new here.
Yes, of course. I am Lisa, and I have been helping students improve their spoken English and their confidence for many years.
And I am James. I focus on practical English that you can actually use in real conversations in your daily life.
Perfect. So let us start with the biggest problem learners face when it comes to speaking. James, what usually happens when a student tries to speak, but they are translating from their native language first?
Well, it usually creates a very long pause. I call it the buffering phase. You know, when you are watching a video on the internet and the internet connection is slow, the video stops and a little circle spins around. That is called buffering. Your brain does the same thing when you translate.
That is a great example. Your brain is buffering. The other person says something to you in English. First, you hear the English words. Then, you translate those English words into your native language in your mind. Then, you think of your answer in your native language. Finally, you try to translate that answer back into English.
Exactly. That is 4 completely different steps just to answer a simple question. No wonder it feels exhausting. Exhausting means it makes you feel very tired. Doing all of that work in your head takes too much energy and too much time.
And when it takes too much time, you start to feel nervous. You see the other person waiting for your answer. You feel the silence. Then you panic and you forget the words you actually know. It is a very stressful situation.
I know this feeling very well personally. People think because I am an English teacher now, I always found languages easy. But when I was learning Spanish a few years ago, I had this exact problem. I was living in Spain for a few months, and I wanted to order a coffee and a sandwich at a local cafe.
Ordering food should be a simple task, right? You probably practiced it in your textbook many times.
I knew all the vocabulary. I knew the word for coffee, the word for milk, the word for sandwich. But when the waiter came to my table and asked what I wanted, my mind went completely blank. I started translating his question into English. Then I thought, okay, I want a coffee with milk. How do I say with? How do I say milk?
And while you were doing that, the waiter was just standing there waiting.
Yes, and he looked a little impatient. Because he was waiting, I got incredibly nervous. I finally just pointed at the menu and said the name of the sandwich. I did not use a full sentence at all. I felt so silly. I went home and thought, I have been studying for a year, why can I not even order a coffee naturally?
Thank you for sharing that story, James. I think so many of our listeners are nodding their heads right now. They understand that exact feeling. They study grammar, they memorize vocabulary lists, but in the real world, the translation process blocks them.
It is a huge emotional block. You feel like you are not making progress even when you are studying hard. Lisa, have you seen this with your own students?
Oh, absolutely. I had a student named Maria last year. Her reading and writing skills were amazing. She could read difficult news articles in English. She knew very advanced vocabulary, but when we tried to just have a casual conversation about her weekend, she would freeze.
Freeze meaning she would just stop and not be able to speak.
Yes, exactly. She would freeze. She told me later that her brain was working so hard to make sure her grammar was perfectly translated from her native language into English. She wanted to be perfect, and because she wanted to be perfect, she translated everything.
That is a big point right there. The desire to be perfect actually makes you speak worse. When you translate, you are trying to perfectly match your native language to English, but languages do not work like that. English has a different structure than your language.
Right, If you try to translate word for word, it will sound very strange to a native speaker. Every language has its own rhythm and its own way of organizing thoughts. So, why do we do this? Why do all language learners start by translating in their heads?
I think it comes down to how we are taught in school. Think about your first English classes when you were a child or a teenager. The teacher usually gives you a list of words. On the left side of the paper is the English word. On the right side is the word in your native language.
Yes, the classic bilingual vocabulary list. We are trained from the very beginning to connect the English word to our native word. We are not taught to connect the English word to the actual object or the actual feeling.
Exactly. If you learn the word apple, you do not think of the red, round fruit that you eat. You think of your native word for apple. So your brain builds a bridge. English word, then native word, then the real object. We need to destroy that bridge. We need to go directly from the English word to the real object.
So how do we do that? This is the most important part of our podcast today. We are going to give you some very practical steps to stop translating and start thinking directly in English. James, what is the first tip we can give our listeners?
The first tip is to start naming the world around you in English. And you can start doing this today, right now. You do not need a partner, and you do not need to be in an English-speaking country.
I love this tip. Can you explain exactly how to do it? Let us give a real example.
Sure, when you wake up in the morning, look around your bedroom. What do you see? Look at the bed and think the word bed. Look at the window and think the word window. Go to the kitchen, and when you pick up your coffee cup, just think the word cup. Do not translate it. Just look at the physical object and attach the English sound to it.
This sounds very simple, but it is incredibly powerful. You are training your brain to skip the translation. You are building a new habit. A habit is something you do regularly, almost without thinking. We want thinking in English to become a natural habit.
Yes, and the key here is to use an English-to-English dictionary if you need to look up a word. If you see an object and you do not know the word in English, try not to use a translation app. Try to use an app that explains the English word using simpler English words.
That is a great challenge for B1 learners. You are at a level now where you can understand simple explanations. If you look up the word umbrella in an English dictionary, it will say something like, a thing you hold over your head to protect you from the rain. By reading that, you stay in English mode.
Staying in English mode is the whole goal. Once you get good at naming single objects, you can move on to the next tip. Our second tip is to stop learning single words and start learning in chunks.
Chunks, that is a great word. Let us explain what a chunk is. A chunk is a group of words that are often used together. It is a phrase or a short sentence. Why is learning chunks so important for thinking in English?
When you learn single words, you have to build every sentence from zero. You have to think about the grammar rules to connect the words. But if you learn a chunk, the grammar is already built in. You do not have to think about it. You just use it.
Exactly. Let me give you an example. Instead of learning the word looking and the word forward separately, you should learn the whole phrase, I am looking forward to it. This is a very common phrase native speakers use when they are excited about a future event.
If someone invites you to a party, you can just say, I am looking forward to it. You do not need to translate from your language. You do not need to think about present continuous grammar. You just pull that whole chunk out of your memory and say it.
It makes your speaking much faster and much more natural. Another great chunk is, what do you mean? If you do not understand someone, do not translate your native phrase for I do not understand. Just use the chunk, what do you mean?
Learning chunks also helps you sound more polite and more native. Every time you watch an English YouTube video or listen to a podcast like this one, try to write down 2 or 3 chunks that you hear. Do not write down single words. Write down the whole phrase.
That is excellent advice. So we have naming objects in your environment, and we have learning phrases or chunks. What is our third practical tip for thinking in English?
Our third tip is my favorite. It is called narrating your daily life. To narrate means to tell a story or to describe what is happening right now. You are going to become the narrator of your own life.
I completely agree with this one. This is how I actually improved my French a few years ago. I would talk to myself in my head or sometimes out loud if I was alone in my apartment. I would just describe my actions.
Exactly, you talk to yourself. Some people might think it sounds crazy, but it is the secret to fluency. Tell us exactly what you would say to yourself, Lisa.
I would say things like, I am opening the fridge. I am taking out the milk. The weather looks beautiful today. I think I will go for a walk later. I need to finish my work email first. Just very simple, everyday sentences.
Notice that these sentences are not complicated. You are a B1 learner, which means you have enough vocabulary and grammar to describe your daily routine. You do not need to discuss politics or philosophy in your head. Just describe your simple actions.
The magic of this exercise is that it forces your inner voice to become an English voice. We all have a voice inside our heads that we use to think. Right now, your inner voice speaks your native language. We need to train that inner voice to speak English part of the day.
And if you do this while you are doing quiet activities, it works best. For example, when you are taking a shower, when you are driving your car, or when you are washing the dishes. These are great times to practice your English inner voice. You have no pressure. Nobody is listening to you.
That is why it removes the fear. If you make a mistake, who cares? You are the only one listening. But what happens, James, if you are narrating your life and you suddenly realize you do not know the word for something?
That is a wonderful question. This is the moment where most students fail. When they do not know the word, they immediately jump back into their native language to find the translation. You must not do that.
So what should they do instead?
You use a technique called circumlocution. That is a very big, fancy word. But it simply means talking around the word. It means describing the object instead of saying its exact name.
Yes, I teach this to my students all the time. It is a vital survival skill in English. Let us say you are looking for your keys, but you forget the English word for keys. How would you describe them?
I would say I am looking for the small metal things that I use to open the door of my house. Or, I need the metal objects to start my car.
Perfect. You did not use your native language. You stayed completely in English. You used simple words that you already know, like small, metal, open, and door. Any native speaker would immediately understand you and say, "Oh, you mean your keys."
Exactly, and then you learn the word from the native speaker naturally. This strategy of describing things is so important. Do not stop speaking just because you miss one word. Use the words you do have. Describe the shape, the color, or what the object is used for.
This builds so much confidence. When you realize that you can communicate your ideas even when you forget the perfect vocabulary word, your fear of speaking starts to disappear. You realize you have enough English inside you right now to survive and communicate.
I want to talk a little bit about the emotional side of this process. Changing how your brain thinks takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. You are not going to wake up tomorrow morning suddenly thinking 100% in English.
No, of course not. It is a slow process, and you have to be gentle with yourself. There will be days when you feel tired and your brain just wants to go back to its comfortable native language. That is completely normal.
It is very normal. Think of it like going to the gym. If you lift heavy weights on your first day, your muscles will be very sore. Your brain is a muscle too. Thinking in English is a heavy workout for your brain. At first, you might only be able to do it for 5 minutes a day.
5 minutes is a fantastic start. Try thinking in English for 5 minutes while you drink your morning coffee. Then, next week, try 10 minutes. Gradually, it will become easier and easier. It will start to feel normal.
I also recommend changing the language on your mobile phone to English. This is a very small change, but you look at your phone dozens of times a day. If you see the English words for settings, messages, and calendar every day, you are forcing your brain to process English without translating.
That is another great practical habit. Also, try to surround yourself with English media, but at the right level. If you watch a movie with very difficult language, you will probably try to translate it to understand. Instead, watch shows or listen to podcasts that are easy for you to understand without translating.
Yes, listening to massive amounts of understandable English is the best way to absorb the natural rhythm of the language. When you listen to a podcast like this one, do not pause it to translate every single word. Try to just understand the general message. Try to catch the overall feeling.
Right. If you understand 70 or 80% of what we are saying, that is a huge success. Let the difficult words pass by. Focus on the words you do know. This trains your brain to accept English as a tool for communication, not as a math problem to solve.
I love that comparison. Language is not a math problem. There is not just one perfect, correct answer. There are many ways to express your thoughts. When you let go of the need to be perfect, you create space in your brain to just flow.
Let us quickly review the main tips we talked about today so our listeners can start practicing right away. Number 1, name the objects around you directly in English. Skip the translation bridge.
Number 2, learn vocabulary in chunks or phrases. Do not memorize single words. Learn how words naturally fit together so you can speak them quickly without thinking about grammar rules.
Number 3, narrate your daily life. Talk to yourself in your head in English. Describe what you are doing, what you are seeing, and what you are feeling throughout the day.
And number 4, if you forget a word, do not panic and do not switch to your native language. Use simple English words to describe the thing you want to say. Use circumlocution.
These are all amazing tools. If you practice these 4 things consistently, I promise you, you will start to notice a big difference. One day, you will realize that you just answered a question in English without thinking about your native language at all. It is the best feeling in the world.
It really is. It is the moment you stop just learning English and start actually living in English. We believe in you. It is hard work, but you are already at a B1 level. You have done the hard work of learning the basics. Now it is just about changing the habit.
Exactly. Be patient, celebrate your small victories, and keep practicing every single day. We are here to support you on this journey. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and listening to our podcast.
Yes, thank you everyone. Keep practicing those chunks, keep talking to yourselves, and we will see you in the next episode with more practical tips to help you master real-world English.
Until next time, stay confident and keep speaking. Goodbye, everyone.